Namaste everyone. Welcome to the part 2 of this video where we are looking at the effects of different planets in the seventh house of marriage and relationships. And in the last video, we started from the sun and we covered till Mercury, and we'll be looking at the remaining planets in this video. Okay. So if your seventh house has Jupiter, in that case, it indicates Jupiter is a classic indicator of a happy or a rather profitable marriage with opportunities for professional cooperation. Okay, it can also mean marriage with a successful, socially fulfilled as well as accomplished person. Now, you have to be careful in analyzing Jupiter in the seventh house. You must ensure that Jupiter is not heavily afflicted and well placed in the sign. Okay, and in modern times, Jupiter in the seventh house may indicate marriage to a foreigner or to a person from a higher social status, higher social strata, rather. And some positions of Jupiter, when it is afflicted by a malefic, may indicate a deliberate marriage for the sake of money or a higher position in the society. Now, if this is happening in the case of a female, then this position can indicate marriage to a lawyer, doctor or priest, merchant, sportsman, or even a person engaged in many other Jovian activities. Okay, for example, such as management, if we talk about modern realities. But then, these relationships may or may not be happy. Okay, Jupiter can give prosperity and prestige, mutual respect and trust, but Jupiter can still give you a loveless marriage. Okay, because Jupiter is not the karaka of love. And people having a Jupiter in the seventh house, they have this intense desire to legitimize relationships. Okay, and these people, they would always want their relationships to be socially, sanctioned. Okay, and if Jupiter is afflicted, then it can increase the number of marriages. Okay, so this can be a case relating to, if Jupiter is afflicted, that is, if it can be an indication of polygamy or numerous love affairs, and these love affairs may continue even after marriage, just like they were before marriage. Okay, now if Jupiter is in a graha yuddha with another planet and just Jupiter gets defeated, then such a person can take everything good in a relationship for granted, as a part of his or her destiny, and will generally be very tempted to expect too much from others. Okay, and such a person having an afflicted Jupiter, or combust Jupiter, or a planetary war defeated Jupiter, such a person is unlikely to carefully and wisely choose a marriage partner, show excessive optimism and gullibility. And such naivety is dangerous because it can be used by people who create a deceptively false Jovian impression of themselves, swindlers, deceivers, and so on. And in the modern context, this defeat of Jupiter in a graha yuddha in the seventh house can describe the partner as boastful or extravagant, who promises more than he or she can actually give. Okay, so in this situation, a very important way, a very easy way to keep yourself motivated in a relationship is the ability to be proud of your partner. If you manage to do this, then this marriage which you're having because of Jupiter in the seventh house can turn out to be a very smooth marriage. Okay, so what if you have Venus in the seventh house? So Venus in the seventh house is a direct indication of a relationship that will be built on love or because of love. Okay, but as students of astrology, you must understand that Venus in the seventh house does not guarantee the success of the marriage. It can only indicate a marriage based on tender feelings, and this is even true in cases where the partner does not deserve the spouse at all. Okay, but this strength of love for a person, the strength of this capacity for loving for a person will always depend on the strength of Venus. Okay, if this happens in a male horoscope and if Venus is favorable, then the marriage usually turns out to be a happy one. And for these people, relationships often begin in their youth. Okay, because in a male chart, Venus will represent a refined, artistic, gentle, and a very neat and tidy spouse with a pleasant appearance and good taste. Okay, now if Venus is moving towards the sun, then the spouse can be very independent minded or independent in terms of work. Okay, if Venus gets into a graha yuddha with another planet, and if Venus is defeated, then the spouse will show some kind of slovenliness, you know, bad taste, and even infidelity. Okay, especially when Venus is located in the air signs. Okay, now if in case of a female horoscope, if Venus is harmonious, then it can represent a husband who, who compromises in character while engaging in a Venusian type of activity. Okay, so these people can be artists, financiers, designers, and so on. But then if Venus gets defeated in a graha yuddha, then it can represent a very lazy individual who tends to live life in a big way, but is often very obsessed with with their appearance or with other women. Okay, so what about Saturn in the seventh house? So although Saturn gets Digbala in the seventh house, the seventh house placement of Saturn can be a difficult position, because often in this position, I've seen this personally, partners have a big age difference, which is very evident in female charts. Okay, and if you have Saturn in the seventh house, then please don't go for early marriage, because it can lead to a reassessment of values around 28 to 32 years. Okay, and with additional factors, this age can be the date of the crisis for the first marriage. Okay, so the position of Saturn itself will determine the luck that someone has when it comes to late marriage. Okay, and there is of course a reason, and the reason here is also that a person with Saturn in the seventh house in any serious relationship will face obstacles and misunderstandings. Okay, so this lack of life experience rises this or gives rise to this state of affairs. Okay, now consider the reverse side of the situation. In a relation with the opposite gender, a person is careful because the person has experienced disappointments in love very seriously and remembers the insults inflicted for a long time. So as a result, these people may have deliberately pessimistic views on marriage and relationships. Okay, so the position of Saturn in the seventh house significantly reduces the number of serious relationships, and with additional factors, it can serve as an indication of celibacy or late marriage, but not so much on love as on reliability and responsibility. Okay, and in this case, Saturn is opposite to Jupiter. Okay, so from this perspective, Saturn can be very, very opposite to Jupiter, as we discussed, right? And if Saturn is not badly placed, if it is not afflicted, then the partner can be a conservative, in terms of responsibility, show very little emotions. Okay, and if such a Saturn, which is not afflicted, exists in a female chart, then such a good Saturn may indicate marriage to to someone who is elderly but very wealthy or influential. Okay, but will not be bothered much by the romantic side of the relationship. Okay, so for those people having Saturn in the seventh house, the married life is usually very stable, because marriage is not entered into impulsively and thoughtlessly, especially when Saturn is in an earth sign. Okay, now if Saturn gets afflicted, then it can create an emotionally cool as well as aloof relationship, and marriage will lead to sad and perhaps even tragic consequences. Okay, so in particular, if Saturn is getting defeated in a graha yuddha, then even the loss of a partner is possible due to death. Okay, and it can also happen that a partner over time becomes more and more indifferent, tough, and despotic, and may manipulate you into thinking that he or she will behave like this for for our own good. Okay, so it is believed that Saturn in the seventh house will always have an element of disappointment. Either that means the person will always have an element of disappointment either in a partner or in the relationship itself, or even in the marriage itself. Okay. Now, what happens if you have Rahu and Ketu in the seventh house? What happens if you have the nodes in the seventh house? Let's have a look at that. Now, if you have Rahu in the seventh house, then it is considered that Rahu is getting Digbala here in this position. So in that case, Rahu increases and consolidates all the positive tendencies, because remember, Rahu will always try to emulate the characteristics of Jupiter. Okay. On the other hand, Ketu's presence can reinforce negative trends, because Ketu will always try to emulate Saturn. Okay. And while trying to do so, Ketu can slow down the processes of the seventh house, narrowing the space of choice and limiting freedom of action. So if you have either Rahu or Ketu in the seventh house, remember that there practically are no random people in your life. Okay, all your relationships are karmic. Now, if Rahu or Ketu are not aspected by any planet, then it inclines to a certain role in partnership and relationship, but does not impose this role rigidly. Okay, so in this case, the node axis can be interpreted as one of the minor elements of the horoscope. Okay, but then if you have this Rahu or Ketu in either in conjunction with another planet or getting aspect from another planet, then there is a complete change in the picture. Okay, and in this case, it is this planet that conjuncts or aspects the node that symbolizes the events, whether they are pleasant or not, and the experiences that the native will have to go through. Okay, so Ketu in the seventh house is a classic indication that although a person is very focused on relationships, they are important to him. First of all, he or she needs to develop qualities like autonomy as well as leadership. Okay, and these people, they should not try to find the meaning of life in marriage and stable relationships, because these relationships will come by themselves as he or she develop as a person. Okay, and usually such a situation will suggest that it'll be very difficult to change something in the partnership. Okay, say if there are negative indications in the seventh house in conjunction with Ketu or Rahu, then relationships will be attracted in which a person will repay karmic debts. Okay, losses and disappointments are possible, and in some cases, a persistent absence of a serious relationship if the chart contains indication of celibacy. Okay, now if K2 has a positive influence on the seventh house, then you can expect that the marriage will come to life by itself. It will simply appear as an opportunity that will be difficult to refuse. Okay. Now, Rahu in the seventh house, of course, will give a different picture. Okay. Because a person having Rahu in the seventh will be born with the experience of developed personal independence. Okay. And such a person is faced with the task of learning to interact with others. And opportunities to do so will be attracted almost all the time. Okay, so this is an immediate karmic assignment to marry or get married. Okay, and if the person does not get married, or if you don't get married, then the theme of marriage will appear in your life repeatedly. Okay, so that's it from me in this video. I've tried to cover the effects of all the planets in the seventh house. And if you have not done it already, please subscribe to the channel, like the content if you find it useful, and please leave behind your valuable feedback in the comment section so that I can know on what things I can improve upon. So that's it from me in this video. I'll see you soon in yet another video. Namaste. Om Gurave Namaha.